The Galactic Council Chamber was vast, carved from crystal and steel, a hall where the greatest powers of the stars gathered. Alien banners fluttered, shimmering with light from 1,000 suns. Delegates of every shape, scaled, feathered, metallic, sat in their tiers, whispering, muttering, arguing. For centuries, the council had debated war and peace, treaties and trade. But today, their voices were sharper, their movements restless. A rumor had spread like fire through dry grass, the rumor of humanity at first. It was spoken only in corners by nervous aides and traveling merchants. But now, the whispers had reached the heart of the galaxy. One word hung in the air, like poison. Apex, a thin, trembling envoy, stood in the center of the chamber. His tendrils quivered as he raised his voice. "I speak the truth that none wish to hear," he said. "Humanity is the apex of the galaxy." The chamber erupted. Claws scraped against tables. Mandibles clicked in outrage. Some delegates laughed harshly, their voices echoing with disbelief. Others hissed, their eyes flashing with fear. The core warlord slammed his armored fist down. Ridiculous. Humanity is young, weak, bound to a single, fragile world. They are not apex, they are prey. But the archivist of the Velen raised his claws and projected a hologram into the air. The chamber fell into uneasy silence as ancient records glowed. Across the dome, the images showed human history. Battles fought with weapons too crude for space, yet filled with savage determination. Soldiers in mud, holding lines against impossible odds. Fleets of steel and fire striking far larger enemies with cunning maneuvers. Humans bleeding, breaking, and yet rising again. "They survive when no one else would," the archivist said softly. "They suffer, but do not die. They lose, but do not surrender. They adapt faster than any race we have ever seen." Murmurs spread again. They are predators who refuse to fall. They are protectors who fight until the end. The truth was spreading, whether the council wanted it or not. But the core warlord snarled, his tusks bared. "Stories, myths, let them face a real fleet, and we will see their so-called apex spirit vanish." The delegates argued again, voices rising, echoing through the dome. Some demanded that Earth be brought under council rule before its people grew too bold. Others warned that such a move could ignite war, and then the chamber froze. A new hologram flickered into the air. Fed by long-range sensors at the edge of council space, a massive human warship appeared, sleek and black against the stars. Its hull shimmered with hidden weapons. Its engines glowed with fury. The Dauntless. Gasps rippled across the chamber. On the bridge of the Dauntless, Lieutenant Sarah Connor stood at the command rail. Her uniform was sharp, her eyes steady, her crew silent but focused. "Status?" she asked. "Engines holding steady. Shields at full." "Council broadcasts are watching us, Lieutenant," her officer reported. Connor's lips curved into the faintest smile. She knew the galaxy was watching. She knew the whispers had reached every corner. Fragile humans, they called them. Weak Earth, not apex. They had no idea. Back in the council chamber, fear and fury mixed, they dare to approach our core worlds. "This is a provocation." Or, "It is a declaration," one elder said softly. The Dauntless drifted closer on the hologram, its weapons silent but its presence thunderous. It was not firing. It did not need to. Its arrival alone was enough to shake the council. The envoy who had spoken first raised his trembling voice again. "They do not hide. Humanity is not myth. Humanity is here." On the Dauntless, alarms suddenly blared. Connor turned sharply. "Report." Her tactical officer's face paled. "Distress signal detected, Lieutenant. Priority channel. Origin. Illyria." The holo shifted. The council chamber watched as the signal came through, filled with static and screams. Flames lit alien cities. Black smoke choked the skies. A voice cried out desperately, then was cut short. Connor's eyes hardened. The swarm gasps erupted in the chamber. The swarm, an ancient nightmare. tide of monsters that devoured worlds whole. No species had ever defeated them. Worlds fell, civilizations vanished. And now they had returned. The core warlords sneered. Let the humans test themselves against the swarm. Then we will see if they are apex or prey. But even he did not sound certain. Connor straightened. Her voice steady, broadcast across the galaxy. The galaxy has watched humanity bleed. The galaxy has mocked humanity's struggle. But today, the galaxy will see the truth. We do not run from monsters. We face them. And we fight. Her crew roared, their voices carrying through the ship like thunder. Humanity fights. In the council chamber, silence fell. Every alien leader stared at the human warship, the humans aboard it, who chose to face what no one else dared. Fear spread through their ranks not because humanity had claimed to be apex, but because they acted like it, and as the Dauntless turned its course toward Illyria, the truth became impossible to deny. On every channel, across every world. The image burned into alien minds, a single human warship burning across the stars. Flying straight toward the swarm, would humanity be crushed like all before them? Or would they prove the whispers true? The screen cut to black. The void of space was never truly silent. Sensors hummed, engines burned, and the whispers of fear carried across coms. But in this moment, as the Dauntless emerged from hyperspace, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. The human warship cut across the stars like a blade. Its hull gleamed black and silver, its cannons hidden beneath armored plating, its engines glowing like a rising sun. It moved with the confidence of a predator that did not fear being hunted. Billions of eyes across alien worlds watched the broadcast. The council chambers replayed the feed endlessly. For many, it was the first time they had seen a human warship. For all, it was the first time they realized Earth was no longer a rumor. Humanity was here, on the bridge. Lieutenant Sarah Connor stood steady, her boots planted firmly on the deck. Her officers worked in tense silence, her hands moving across glowing consoles. Council fleets are shadowing us, her comms officer reported. They're keeping distance, but they're tracking every move. Connor's eyes narrowed. Good. Let them watch. Let them see what humanity truly is. Her tactical officer hesitated, then asked the question all of them carried. Lieutenant, do you think they'll believe it? Connor's voice was calm, almost cold. Belief doesn't matter. Truth doesn't bend to fear. And the truth is humanity fights. In the council chamber, voices rose and broke like crashing waves. This is provocation. They dare fly into our core space with weapons ready. They should be destroyed before they spark war. But others spoke softer, their voices uneasy. Look at their ship. It is different. It is not the vessel of prey. It is the vessel of hunters, at the highest tier. The eldest counselor leaned forward, his ancient eyes unblinking. Perhaps, he said slowly, the whispers are not lies. Far away, the Gorv armada stirred. Within their massive flagships, warlords roared with cruel delight. To them, humanity was no apex predator. Humanity was a toy, prey to be hunted, broken, erased. Warlord Vrax bared his tusks as he watched the Dauntless's image on his tactical hala. A single human warship dares to move against us. Good, we will make an example of them. The Gorv ships began to form their trap on the Dauntless. Alarms chimed. Connor turned sharply. Report. Her officer's hands flew across the console. Multiple signatures inbound. Gorv ships. A whole strike group. The crew stiffened. Some drew sharp breaths, others exchanged grim looks. The Gorv armada was not a foe to laugh at. Entire civilizations had burned before them, but Connor's expression did not change. Her gaze locked on the star map, her mind already moving faster than the threat. They expect us to retreat, she said. They expect fear. But humanity does not run. Her hand gripped the railing, her voice steady. Set course. Directly into their formation, the bridge fell silent. Then the crew obeyed. Across the galaxy, Alien fleets monitoring the encounter cried out in disbelief. They're flying straight into the trap. No one has ever survived the Gorv. They are mad, or apex. Billions of citizens held their breath. In homes, in council halls, in shadowed bunkers. All watched the human warship dive headfirst into the jaws of the most feared predators in the stars. The Gorv ships closed in. Their formation was flawless, a web of steel and plasma ready to swallow the Dauntless. Warlord Vrax grinned. Tighten the net. Crush them. Make the galaxy watch their end. On his command, the Gorv ships armed their weapons. Cannons glowed, torpedoes primed, plasma cores throbbed with lethal energy. The void itself seemed to tense on the Dauntless. Connor stood calm, though her heart pounded with fire. "Helm," she said quietly. "Bring us in closer." The officer hesitated. "Lieutenant, if we go any deeper," her gaze was ice. Closer, the ship surged forward, engines burning brighter. Gorv firing range in 30 seconds. Her tactical officer called. Connor's eyes locked on the screen, on the web of enemies surrounding them. Her lips curved into a razor-thin smile. "Let them think they have us." The Gorv opened fire. Beams of plasma streaked across the void, slamming into the Dauntless. Shields flared and screamed under the impact. Alarms blared, consoles shook, metal groaned. Shields at 60%. Hull holding. The crew braced, teeth clenched, sweat dripping. And still, Connor stood tall. "Hold steady," she commanded. "Not yet." Warlord Vrax roared with laughter as explosions rippled across the human vessel's shields. "See, they are nothing. Prey pretending to be predators. End them." But then, his laughter died. The Dauntless didn't break. It didn't flee. It didn't even slow. Instead, hidden hatches opened across its sleek hull. Dozens of mines, drones, and countermeasures launched in every direction. They scattered like fireflies through the Gorv formation. Vrax's eyes widened. What? The void erupted. The drones ignited. Their warheads ripping through Gorv cruisers, and sudden bursts of plasma and EMP ships spiraled. Their systems fried, their formation collapsing. And in that chaos, the Dauntless struck. Its cannons roared to life. Plasma lances burning through crippled ships, carving open destroyers with surgical precision. In moments, the flawless Gorv trap became a graveyard. Across the galaxy, alien leaders leaned forward in disbelief. "No one has ever." They turned the trap. "This is impossible." But it was not impossible. It was human. On her bridge, Sarah Connor's eyes blazed. "They thought us prey," she said. "But humanity is the hunter." Her crew roared, voices hoarse but fierce. "Humanity fights." But as the wreckage of the Gorv burned, another signal pierced the noise. Connor's officer looked up, his face pale. "Lieutenant," a distress call. "Planet Illyria. They're under attack. Not by the Gorv, by the swarm." The bridge fell silent. Even hardened veterans stiffened at the name. The swarm, the galaxy's nightmare. No one had ever faced them and survived. Connor's jaw tightened. She knew what had to come next. "Set course for Illyria," she said. Her voice was cold, sharp as a blade. "We show the galaxy the truth. Humanity does not fear the dark." Across the galaxy, the broadcast carried the image of the Dauntless scarred, smoking. But unbroken, turning toward Illyria. Every alien who saw it whispered the same words. "The humans are not prey. They are apex." The screen cut to black. The skies of Illyria burned. Once, the planet had been a jewel crystal towers rising above emerald forests, oceans shimmering like sapphire glass. Now, it was smoke and ruin. Flames swallowed entire cities, and the skies were thick with black clouds. From the wreckage came an endless sound, the shriek of the swarm. The creatures poured across the land in rivers of claws and mandibles, their bodies glistening like obsidian armor. They devoured steel and flesh with equal hunger, tearing everything into dust. Entire populations had already been silenced. Now the galaxy watched as Illyria screamed for help. On the Dauntless, alarms pulsed red. Lieutenant Sarah Connor stood on the bridge, her eyes locked on the projection of the dying world. Status, she demanded. Her tactical officer's voice was tight. Planetary defense grid gone. Civilian colonies overrun. Only scattered survivors remain. And Lieutenant, he hesitated. Connor's voice cut sharper. Say it. The swarm covers 90% of the surface. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew the meaning. Illyria was lost. No species had ever fought the swarm and lived. The Council had always turned away, abandoning worlds once the infestation began, but humanity was not the Council. Connor's jaw set. Prepare the pods. We're going down. Her words spread across the fleet channels. Alien observers gasped. They're going to the surface. Impossible. No one lands on a swarm world. There's suicide. But others leaned closer, whispering, no, they're human. They don't run. Commander Jacob Reed led the first strike squad. His boots hit the floor of the drop pod with a metallic thud. Around him, Marines checked weapons, sealed helmets, tightened armor. Their faces were pale, but their eyes burned with grim fire. Reed's voice was steady, carrying over the roar of the engines. Our ancestors crossed oceans with only the stars to guide them. They faced storms, famine, death, and they endured. Today, we carry that fire. Today, we endure again. The Marines pounded their fists to their chests. Humanity fights. The pods detached. They streaked through the burning skies like falling stars, their armored hulls cutting through smoke and ash. The pods slammed into the ruins of a once proud city. Doors burst open, and human soldiers stormed into the chaos. The swarm was waiting. Chittering nightmares poured from the shadows, its eyes glowing like embers. They charged in waves, claws slashing, mandibles snapping. Contact! Reed roared. Lasers blazed. Explosives thundered. The streets lit with fire as humanity and the swarm collided. From the rubble, ragged survivors emerged, Illyrian fighters, their once bright eyes hollow with despair. They clutched battered rifles, their bodies trembling. When they saw the humans, disbelief flashed across their faces. Reed raised his rifle and switched his translator. His voice cut through the battle. You are not alone. Together, we strike at the heart of this beast. The Illyrians straightened. Their fear gave way to fire. For the first time in generations, they saw hope carried on human shoulders. They joined the fight. Above the planet, the Dauntless unleashed her fury. Plasma lances roared from her cannons, carving through swarm nests that pulsed on the surface. Orbital strikes hammered the monsters, blasting craters into their hives. On her bridge, Connor barked orders, her eyes blazing. Time every strike. Cover Reed's squad. The Dauntless does not abandon her children. Her crew moved with relentless focus, sweat dripping, fingers blistered, but not one faltered. The warship howled like a beast, a promise of fire and protection. On the surface, the battle was brutal. Reed's squad fought shoulder to shoulder with Illyrians, their rifles glowing red-hot, armor scorched and cracked. They pushed through streets filled with bodies, carving paths with grenades and fury. Yet the swarm did not end. For every monster they killed, two more took its place. Claws raked armor. Soldiers fell screaming. Still red roared above the chaos. We adapt. We overcome. We never yield. His Marines echoed him, their voices raw. Never yield? Hours felt like years. Then, in the middle of the carnage, Reed saw something strange. A faint blue glow pulsing in the rubble. He froze. His training sparked. Reports had spoken of this needle grass, a fragile plant known only to a handful of xenobiologists. And if the records were true, it was toxic to the swarm. Reed knelt, armored hands brushing the glowing stalks. His voice cracked through comes. Lieutenant Connor, we've found something. This could be their weakness. Connor's reply came cold, sharp, then harvested. no matter the cost. The swarm screamed. They sensed the threat. From the shadows came larger horrors, armored beasts the size of tanks, claws slashing like blades. The ground shook as they thundered toward Reed's squad. "Cover the collectors!" Reed roared. Bullets and lasers shredded the first wave. Explosives thundered through the second. But the swarm did not break. They slammed against the human line, claws sparking against armor, mandibles tearing. The Marines bled, but they held. Illyrians fought with them, their desperation reforged into courage. Together, they pushed the monsters back, long enough to tear the glowing plants from the soil. Needle grass was gathered, bound, carried on their backs. Humanity's gamble had begun, but the victory was not yet theirs. Above the planet, new signals flashed across the Dauntless's sensors. Connor's officer paled. "Lieutenant Gorv, reinforcements. They're closing in." Connor's chest tightened, but her face was steel. "So be it. We fight on two fronts." She turned to her crew, her voice fierce. "Signal Reed. Tell him humanity doesn't break not against Gorv, not against Swarm. Today, the galaxy will see the truth." Her officers roared with her. Voices fierce despite exhaustion. Humanity fights. The galaxy watched in awe as a single human squad harvested a weapon in the heart of hell. While one human ship faced two impossible enemies at once, alien leaders trembled, and across the stars, whispers turned to dread. This is the truth. Humanity is apex. The screen cut to black. The ruins of Illyria trembled with every step of the swarm. Claws scraped across stone. Mandibles clicked, and black skies thundered with the endless shrieks of alien nightmares. The planet itself felt alive with death in the middle of that chaos. Commander Jacob Reed crouched beside a patch of glowing plants. Their thin stalks pulsed faint blue, fragile but steady even in the ash. Needle grass? Reed's armored fingers brushed the fronds. His visor display confirmed what his gut already knew. "This is it," he muttered. Their weakness. Private Hernandez knelt beside him, sweat dripping despite the suit's filters. "Sir, we can't hold them off long enough to use it." Reed's eyes burned. "We don't hold them off. We hurt them badly." Overhead, the Dauntless roared against the night. Plasma cannons thundered, lighting the surface with blinding fire. The ground shook with every orbital strike as Sarah Connor's ship carved swaths through the swarm. On her bridge, alarms screamed. Consoles sparked, shields at 40%. Her tactical officer shouted. Gorv ships closing in from orbit. Connor's jaw tightened, but her voice never wavered. "Then we bleed with Illyria. Divert all power to weapons. Keep Reed alive at any cost." Her crew obeyed, their eyes shining with grim fire. The Dauntless did not abandon her own. On the surface, Reed rallied his squad. "Listen up." His voice cut through the chaos. "The needle grass can poison the swarm, but it only works if we feed it directly into their hives. That means up close, face to face with those monsters." The Marines stiffened. Illyrian survivors stared in disbelief. No one had ever spoken of entering a hive. Reed slammed his fist against his chest plate. "Our ancestors fought impossible battles with nothing but grit and hope. Today, we do the same. Humanity fights." The Marines roared the words back, their voices echoing off broken towers. Even the Illyrians shouted with them. Their fear reforged into courage. The first push began. Soldiers tore glowing stalks from the rubble, binding them in packs. Illyrians carried the loads on their backs. Human Marines formed a living wall around them. Rifles blazing into the swarm. The monsters came in waves, skittering claws, gnashing jaws, armored beasts as large as tanks. "Contact!" Reed shouted. Lasers lit the ruins. Explosions thundered. Marines and Illyrians fought back to back, blades and plasma cutting through nightmare flesh. "Cover the collectors!" Reed roared. "Every stock matters." Hours blurred into chaos. Blood splashed, armor cracked, Soldiers fell. Still, the packs grew heavier with needle grass. They reached the first HFY, massive pulsing mound of biomass, oozing with black ichor. Its surface throbbed like a living heart, spewing more swarm into the ruins. "Do it," Reed ordered. Hernandez and two Illyrians shoved the glowing plants into the hive's core. The reaction was instant. The mound convulsed. Smoke poured from its pores. The swarm nearby shrieked, stumbling in confusion. "It works," Hernandez cried. The soldiers cheered. Hope sparked alive, but the swarm had felt the threat. From the shadows crawled horrors larger than war machines. Their armored shells glistening, their eyes glowing crimson. They shrieked with rage, charging at the humans. "Hold them back," Reed roared. Plasma fire ripped through the first wave. Explosives tore holes in the second. Marines screamed defiance. Illyrians fought like demons, their blades flashing in the chaos. One soldier fell, dragged into the dark by claws. Another held the line until his rifle overheated, then swung it like a club until he was torn apart. Each death bought seconds. Each scream carried the mission forward, and still. They shoved needle grass into hive after hive, poisoning the monsters at their source above. The Dauntless bled. The Gorv reinforcements had arrived. Destroyers poured plasma into her shields. Hull plating cracked. Fire spread across decks. Starboard batteries offline. Casualties in engineering. Connor gripped the railing, sweat streaking her face. "We hold. Humanity doesn't break against Gorv or Swarm." Her voice cut like steel, filling her crew with fire. For Illyria. On the surface, the ground shook violently. The largest hive split open, its walls tearing apart in rivers of ichor. From the crater rose a creature larger than towers a swarm queen. Its armored shell glistened black. Its mandibles clashed like thunder, and its wings blotted out the burning sky. The queen roared, the sound shaking stone itself. The Illyrians froze in terror. No one had ever stood before a queen and lived. Reed's face hardened. His rifle hummed in his grip. "Then today," he said, "we make history." The queen charged. Her claws slammed into broken towers, tearing them apart like paper. Her shriek split the air, driving fear into every heart. Reed raised his voice over the roar. "All guns on me. Bring her down." Plasma fire hammered the queen's shell. Rockets burst against her wings. Illyrian blades slashed at her legs. The battlefield became fire and thunder, a storm of humanity and allies against a monster born of nightmares. But still, the queen pushed forward. On the Dauntless. Sensors screamed. Lieutenant Queen-class swarm detected. It's heading for Reed's position. Connor's chest tightened, but her eyes blazed. "Then we give them everything we have left." Her voice carried across the ship. "Divert all power to forward batteries. Fire until nothing remains. Lieutenant, that will cripple us." She slammed her fist on the rail. "Do it. Humanity fights." The galaxy watched in silence as one human squad stood before the Queen, rifles blazing, and one human ship prepared to burn itself alive to protect them. Alien leaders whispered in dread, "This is why we fear them." Humanity gambles everything and wins. The screen cut to black. The sky above. Illyria was fire. The Swarm Queen towered over the ruins, wings blotting out the clouds, claws crushing stone into dust. Below her, Jacob Reed's squad fought like wolves surrounded by flame. Plasma rifles burned hot, grenades thundered. Illyrian fighters slashed with glowing blades, but the Queen still advanced. Her roar splitting the air, and above, the Dauntless shuddered under the hammer of Gorv warships. The human ship groaned with every blast, its shields cracked, its hull bleeding sparks. "Lieutenant," an officer cried, "we can't take another volley." Sarah Connor stood firm at the command rail, her voice sharp as steel. "We hold. If Reed falls, Illyria falls. Humanity doesn't break here." Across the galaxy, billions watched the broadcast. Alien leaders whispered in disbelief. "One ship against Gorv and Swarm? They cannot survive." Then why are they still fighting? Fear spread like wildfire, but so did something else. Curiosity. Hope. The swarm surged again. On the surface, Reed's Marines formed a wall around the Illyrian survivors. Armor scorched, faces pale, they fired until their weapons smoked. Cover Hernandez. Reed shouted as the young soldier dragged packs of needle grass toward the hive. Mandibles snapped inches from Hernandez's throat before Reed's rifle burst them apart. The plants were shoved deep into the biomass, and the hive shrieked in agony. The queen stumbled for a heartbeat, her roar shaking the ruins. It works. Hernandez gasped. Reed's face hardened. Then we keep hitting her until she falls. On the Dauntless, alarm screamed. Starboard engines gone. Reactor strain? Critical. Connor's knuckles whitened on the rail. Sweat streaked her face, but her voice stayed steady. Divert everything to the guns. Buy them another minute. Her crew obeyed without hesitation, even as fire spread through the decks. The ship thundered with fury, plasma lances tearing holes through Gorv destroyers, but there were too many. The Gorv tightened their formation, plasma batteries glowing brighter. The Dauntless was a lone wolf, surrounded by hungry beasts, and then the stars. Shifted new signatures ripped out of hyperspace leak ships shimmering silver and blue. Their hulls etched with alien runes. Their formation moved like dancers. It's elegant, but lethal. The Valyrian Confederacy had arrived. The Dauntless's crew gasped. Connor's eyes widened as a calm, melodic voice filled the comms. "Lieutenant Sarah Connor," the voice said. "This is Admiral Sith. Humanity does not stand alone. We fight with you." The galaxy froze. Billions of watchers blinked in shock. For centuries, the Valyrians had stood apart, their fleets too proud, their councils too cautious. They had never intervened in another race's war until now. The chamber of the Galactic Council erupted in chaos. They fight for the humans. This changes everything. Perhaps. The whispers were true. On the battlefield, the tide turned. Valyrian warships cut into the Gorv lines, their beams slicing like blades of light. Their signals scrambled swarm coordination, throwing the hive into chaos. For the first time, the monsters faltered. Their once perfect tide reduced to frenzied beasts. On the surface, Reed's eyes widened as silver streaks lit the sky. Illyrians gasped, their hope rekindled. The Valyrians. One survivor whispered. They came. Reed's lips curled into a fierce grin. Then let's give them a reason to stay. The joint counterattack began. The Dauntless surged forward, cannons roaring alongside Valyrian beams. Illyrian fighters darted through the streets, emboldened by human courage. Marines and rebels pushed deep into hive territory, shoving needle grass into pulsing nodes. The queen shrieked, her wings thrashing, her shell cracking under the combined fire of human rifles and Illyrian blades. "Now," Reed shouted. "Focus fire!" The battlefield erupted in a storm of plasma and steel. The queen staggered, roared one final time, and collapsed into the ruins. Her carcass shook the ground as silence spread across the burning city. The swarm broke. Cheers roared across human and Illyrian ranks. Survivors wept. Soldiers fell to their knees, clutching one another in disbelief. On the Dauntless, battered crew raised their fists. For the first time in living memory, the swarm had been beaten across the galaxy. Billions whispered the same words. Humans did it. They broke the swarm. Humanity is apex. But Sarah Connor's eyes narrowed on her screen. New signals appeared, dark distortions at the edge of known space. The readings were strange, unnatural, unlike anything she had seen. "Admiral Sith," she said quietly. "Are your sensors picking this up?" The Valyrian commander's calm voice faltered. "Yes, and it is worse than I feared." Connor's crew leaned forward, their hearts tightening. "What is it?" Sith's reply was soft, almost reverent. "Something older than Swarm or Gorv. Something that devours suns. We call it the Shade." As survivors cheered on Illyria, its allies raised their banners in triumph, The screens of every warship flickered with a single dreadful image. Stars dying. Whole systems vanishing into darkness. And Sarah Connor's voice cut through the silence, cold and steady. This war is not over. Humanity stands at the edge of something far worse. The screen cut to black. The galaxy celebrated on Illyria. Survivors wept with joy. Human marines and Illyrian rebels clasped hands, their victory over the swarm echoing across burning ruins. Across distant worlds, alien citizens watched the replay of the battle, the Dauntless cutting through Gorv ships. Reed's squad planting needle grass into hive cores. The Swarm Queen collapsing in flames. For the first time in living memory, a swarm infestation had been destroyed. Humanity had done the impossible. But Sarah Connor did not celebrate. On the bridge of the Dauntless, her eyes stayed fixed on the tactical screen. Amid the cheers and relief, she saw the anomaly. Lieutenant, her comms officer said quietly, "Those strange signals. They're spreading." The map projected the galaxy in light. Whole sectors flickered red, then went dark. It wasn't just interference, it was extinction. Stars themselves were vanishing. Connor's voice was steady but sharp. "Get me, Admiral Varian. And put Admiral Sith on this channel too. Everyone needs to see this." In the Allied war chamber, the air was heavy. Human officers, Valyrian strategists, Allian survivors, even reluctant council envoys all stood around a vast HOLO-table. Jacob Reed limped in, his armor cracked, his face scarred, but his eyes alive. He carried the proof of their battle and his stance victory, carved from blood and fire, Dr. Zrax. The insectoid scientist clicked his mandibles as he expanded the projection. The image warped, showing the galaxy's edge twisting with spectral waves. This is not Swarm, not Gorv, not anything we have faced before. The hollow-shifted suns collapsed into black voids. The entire systems erased like chalk wiped from a board. Reed frowned, his voice low. "It doesn't conquer. It consumes." The room fell silent. Even hardened warriors lowered their heads. Even proud Valerian admirals whispered in unease. Admiral Varian broke the silence. "This is not invasion. This is annihilation." Sarah Connor leaned forward, her voice cutting through the fear. "If it can consume suns, then it can consume us all. Humanity has seen extinction before and survived. But this will test more than survival. This will test our right to exist." Her words burned through the chamber, and slowly heads began to rise. Work began. For weeks, the Dauntless became a hive of creation. Human engineers welded alongside Valerian artisans, Illyrian survivors carrying supplies, even reluctant council aides working through the night. Weapons were drawn on holoscreen's dark energy cannons. Gravity disruptors, shields vast enough to blanket worlds. Jacob Reed oversaw ground teams, his voice sharp, pushing them harder than ever. Good enough isn't good enough. If it can't crack the shade open, it's useless. Back to the board. Across Allied space, construction yards glowed. Pieces of something massive took shape, a wall stretching across the void. Humanity called it the Bulwark. Whispers spread across every world. The humans are building something. They lead, and the others follow. Perhaps they are apex after all. For every word of doubt, more voices rose in awe. But even as they built, the warnings grew worse. Scout ships vanished without trace. Colonies went silent. Stars dimmed in unnatural patterns. Every message carried the same dread. The shade is coming, on the bridge of the Dauntless. Connor stared at the darkened sectors, her jaw set. How much time? Her officer swallowed. Weeks, maybe less. Connor's eyes hardened. Then the galaxy has weeks to decide. Stand with the sore, be consumed. When the shade came, the galaxy trembled. At the edge of mapped space, sensors screamed. The void itself bled light. Space rippled and tore, and then it emerged. It was not a fleet. It was not a creature. It was something between storm and nightmare. A mass of writhing shadow stretched across the stars, its tendrils coiling like living storms. Suns dimmed as it passed. Planets cracked in silence. Every crewman who saw it felt their heart freeze. Every alien leader who watched whispered the same word: the end. But Sarah Connor stood firm. Her voice cut across every fleet channel, sharp as a blade. We have seen extinction before. We did not bow then, and we do not bow now. Humanity does not cower. Humanity fights. Her words struck like thunder. Across fleets, alien captains straightened. Soldiers clenched their fists. Crews roared their defiance. The Allied armada surged into position. The bulwark ignited. Shields glowed bright. Cannons roared. Fighters launched like sparks from fire, and the shade struck. Tendrils slammed against the bulwark, tearing through fleets, ripping ships apart like paper. The wall groaned, its shields flaring under impossible strain. Entire squadrons vanished in seconds, screams echoing across coms. But the Allies fought back. Human warships poured plasma fire into the abyss. Valyrian beams cut tendrils in half. Illyrian fighters dove like arrows, carving burning scars into the dark. The bulwark held barely. On the command rail of the Dauntless, Connor's hands tightened, her eyes locked on the projections. Hold the line. She shouted, "Every second we stand, the galaxy remembers we do not yield." Her crew roared with her, their voices shaking the ship. The Dauntless surged forward, blasting through shadow tendrils, her cannons blazing with fury. In the war chamber, Reed scanned the patterns, his mind racing. And then he saw it. "There," he whispered. "A ripple. Deep in the shade. Its core." His voice hardened. "That's its weakness. If we strike there, we can hurt it." He sent the coordinates to Connor. On her bridge, her breath caught. For the first time since Illyria, hope flickered. Her voice shook, but it burned with fire. "There. That's its heart." All ships prepare to strike. The galaxy watched in silence as the Dauntless spearheaded the Allied armada, charging straight into the abyss. Alien leaders trembled. Citizens wept, and across the stars whispers grew louder than fear. This is why we fear them. Humanity dares what no one else would. The screen cut to black. The stars shook. The shade filled the void like a storm without end. Its tendrils coiled and lashed, black rivers stretching across entire systems. Suns dimmed in its wake, their lights smothered by living shadow. Whole fleets vanished into its hunger. Against this abyss stood the bulwark, humanity's impossible creation. A wall of steel and light stretching across the stars, forged by human hands and alien sacrifice. Its cannons glowed like suns, its shields blazed like auroras, and its defenders prepared to die on its frame. At the heart of it, the Dauntless burned forward, scarred but unbroken. On her bridge, Lieutenant Sarah Connor stood tall. Her uniform was torn, her hair streaked with sweat and ash, but her eyes were fire. "This is the stand," she said. Her voice carried through the ship, through the fleet, across the galaxy itself. "If we fall here, everything falls. But if we strike truth, the shade will know what humanity is." Her crew roared back, fists slamming consoles. Humanity fights. In the war chamber deep within the bulwark, Commander Jacob Reed stood before the holotable. His armor was dented, his voice hoarse, but his gaze locked sharp on the shade's patterns. "There," he barked, pointing at a ripple pulsing deep in the mass. "Its heart. If we strike every ship, every cannon, every gun at that point, at once we can break it." Dr. Drax's mandibles clicked. "If the timing fails by even a second, the energy will rebound. The fleet will be destroyed." Reed's voice was steel. "Then we don't miss." The countdown began. Across the Allied armada, warships shifted into formation. Valyrian cruisers slid into elegant arcs. Illyrian fighters formed tight waves. Human ships braced themselves like wolves circling prey. "Synchronize fire," Connor ordered. Her eyes never left the target glowing on the screen. The shade writhed, sensing the danger. Its tendrils lashed harder, smashing into fleets, tearing ships in half. The bulwark groaned under the strain, shields flickering dangerously. Allied squadrons down by 30%. An officer cried, "Sections of the bulwark failing." Connor gripped the railing until her knuckles turned white. Hold. Just hold. The countdown hit 0. The galaxy lit with fire. Every cannon, every ship, every weapon unleashed at once. Plasma lances burned, Valerian beams sliced, Illyrian missiles screamed. The void itself trembled as the combined fury of 100 species slammed into the shade's heart. For the first time, the abyss screamed. Cracks split across its surface, light blazing through the dark. Tendrils convulsed, twisting violently. The shade staggered. Cheers erupted across the fleets. We heard it. It's breaking. On the bridge of the Dauntless, Connor's chest swelled with fire. Press the attack. Don't give it time to recover. But the celebration died too quickly. The cracks sealed. The light dimmed. The shade's scream shifted into something worse. A silent, mocking laugh that shook every soul. Its tendrils surged with renewed fury. Larger and stronger than before. Entire squadrons vanished in seconds. Valerian ships exploded in cascades of blue flame. Illyrian fighters were swept away like sparks in a storm. The bulwark itself cracked. Towers of steel split open, shields shattered. Fire ripping through its colossal frame. Reed slammed his fist on the holotable. No, it's adapting. On the Dauntless, alarms blared, shields down. Reactor at critical strain. We can't hold much longer. Connor's jaw clenched, her voice low but fierce. We cannot break. Not here. Not now. Her crew looked at her, pale with fear, waiting for orders. She lifted her chin. Signal Admiral Sith. Signal every captain left. If our last strike wasn't enough, her eyes blazed, then we make the next one count, even if it costs everything. In the war chamber, Reed leaned over the failing holomap. His voice was raw. One ship. One overloaded core. A direct plunge into the shade's heart. That's the only way left. The chamber froze. Alien leaders stared in disbelief. Even hardened generals looked away. To sacrifice a ship? One counselor whispered. Madness. But Admiral Varian's eyes narrowed. Not madness. Humanity. Connor received the message. Her bridge fell silent as the reality sank in. To end the shade, the Dauntless would have to die. Her crew stared at her, waiting. Some pale, some trembling, but none ready to abandon her. Connor raised her voice, steady as a hammer. If humanity falls here, the galaxy dies. But if we burn bright enough, the galaxy lives. That is worth everything. She looked at every face, every scarred soldier, every tired officer. I won't order you, but I will go, one by one. Her crew stood taller, to the last breath, for Illyria, for humanity. The bridge thundered with their voices. Humanity fights. Across the galaxy, billions of eyes watched as the Dauntless, scarred and burning, turned its course directly toward the shade's heart. The abyss loomed, vast and endless. Alien leaders whispered in dread and awe. No one else would dare. No one else could. And Sarah Connor's voice cut across every channel. Cold and fierce. Humanity makes its final stand. The screen cut to black. The void was fire. The bulwark burned across the stars. Its towers collapsing, its shields shattered. Allied fleets broke apart, ships scattering like sparks in a storm. The shade loomed vast and endless, its tendrils stretching across the void, its hunger pressing on every mind, and yet one ship still flew straight into the heart of the abyss, the Dauntless, on her bridge. Lieutenant Sarah Connor stood tall, though her ship groaned around her. Bulkheads split, alarms screamed, smoke filled the air. But her eyes stayed fixed on the darkness ahead. This is it, she said, her voice steady. Our ancestors crossed oceans. They faced storms and fire. They fought until the last breath. Today, we carry them into the stars. Her crew, battered and bloodied, lifted their heads. They answered with one voice: humanity fights. In the Allied war chamber, silence fell. Alien leaders, soldiers, scientists all watched the lone human warship dive toward the Shade's heart. No one survives a plunge like that, one whispered. They don't mean to survive, Admiral Varian replied grimly. They mean to win. Admiral Sith of the Valyrians bowed his head, his melodic voice trembling. No other race would dare. The Dauntless drove forward, engines screaming, her hull burning. The Shade thrashed, tendrils slamming around her, tearing through space itself. But the human ship dodged, weaving between coils of shadow, its cannons blazing defiantly until they burned out. Reactor at critical overload. Engineering shouted, "We're out of weapons." Forward integrity collapsing. Connor gripped the rail, her voice sharp. Then the ship itself is our weapon. On the surface of Illyria, survivors lifted their eyes to the skies. They saw a streak of light piercing the darkness. One fragile spark against an ocean of shadow. An Illyrian child whispered, voice trembling, They fight for us." And in that moment, even the most broken survivor believed. Inside the Dauntless, Connor opened a channel to the fleet. Her face appeared across every ship, every com station, every world still watching. Her eyes burned with fire, her voice clear as steel. Humanity does not run. Humanity does not bow. We stand and we fight. If this is the end, then let it be remembered for all time humanity stood as apex. Her words carried across the galaxy. Soldiers wept. Captains saluted. Even council envoys rose from their seats, their pride broken by awe. The reactor screamed, "Overload in 60 seconds." Engineering cried. Connor turned to her crew. Her voice softened, but her eyes were fierce. "It has been my honor. Hold steady. Let's burn brighter than the stars." The crew saluted, their faces calm, their fear gone. To the last breath, the Dauntless plunged into the Shade's heart. Its reactor split open, light pouring like fire through every corridor. The ship became a spear of brilliance, brighter than 1,000 suns. The Shade shrieked. Its tendrils writhed in agony as the human vessel pierced its core. "Detonate!" Connor roared. The reactor collapsed and exploded. The galaxy lit with fire. The Shade convulsed, its body ripping apart as cracks of light spread through its endless mass. Suns flared back into being as its tendrils dissolved. Whole systems shook as the abyss screamed one final time, then shattered into nothing. The Shade was gone. For a heartbeat. Silence ruled the stars. Then cheers erupted. Across Valyrian fleets. Across Alarian cities, across council chambers and distant colonies, voices rose in triumph. Soldiers wept, civilians cheered. Leaders bowed their heads. The unthinkable had happened. The Shade was destroyed, but then amid the wreckage, a faint signal broke through the static. "This is Sarah Connor, of the Dauntless. Mission complete. Humanity endures." The voice was weak, broken, but alive. Survivors on escape pods and shuttlecraft had made it out. The galaxy roared with joy. Connor's name became legend that very moment. In the aftermath, as the council convened again, this time there was no laughter, no mockery. Delegates stood in silence as survivors of Illyria walked forward, followed by Valyrian admirals and human commanders. Reed, scarred and unyielding, spoke with a soldier's bluntness. "You doubted us? You called us fragile. Pray. Now you know the truth. Humanity is apex. Not because we are strongest, not because we are most advanced, but because we fight when no one else will. Because we carry hope where others see only despair." No one argued. No one could. From that day forward, humanity was no longer dismissed. No longer ignored, alien children grew up hearing the story of the Dauntless. Songs were written, statues carved, hallas broadcast on every world, and across the galaxy, whispers turned into truth. When the abyss came, it was humanity that burned brighter than the stars. When the end approached, It was humanity that refused to fall. Humanity, the apex of the galaxy. Sarah Connor stood on a repaired balcony of the Dauntless's rebuilt frame, gazing into the stars. Jacob Reed stood beside her, scarred but alive. "They feared us before," Reed said quietly. "Now they'll never forget." Connor's eyes burned as she looked at the infinite dark. Her voice was steady, sharp as a blade. "Good. Let them remember. Humanity does not seek conquest. But if the galaxy calls us prey," she smiled faintly, "we will always show them the apex." The screen faded to black.